I didn't plan to cry in the middle of a grocery store that day, but life doesn't exactly care about your pride when you're holding your last $10 and your daughter has a fever. The line behind me was getting longer. My card had just been declined. Again, the cashier's polite smile was starting to fade, and my little girl, Lily, was tugging on my sleeve asking, "Mommy, can we still get my medicine?" My throat tightened. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, some impatient, some pitying. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I was about to start removing things from the counter, milk, cereal, even her antibiotics, when a quiet voice behind me said, "Don't worry about it. I've got this." I turned around, and that's when I saw him. A stranger, calm, kind eyes, not rich, looking not dramatic, just ordinary, but that one sentence from him changed everything. I still remember the sound of the cashier's voice, flat, rehearsed, tired. "That'll be $83, 47, 80, $3.47. I stared at the register screen, the numbers blurring through the tears I was trying hard to blink back. My hands shook as I shuffled through my worn-out wallet, pretending to look for a card that I already knew was maxed out. It was a grey Tuesday morning, the kind that feels heavy before it even begins. I hadn't eaten properly in 2 days, saving what little I had for my daughter, Lily. She was 6, bright eyes, boundless energy, and no idea that her mom was slowly unraveling under the weight of overdue bills, rent notices, and a job that barely covered bus fare. I had come to the grocery store to pick up essentials: milk, bread, cereal, and the pink antibiotic syrup Lily needed for her stubborn ear infection. Every item in my cart was necessary, and yet as the total glared at me from the register, I knew I couldn't afford any of it. "I'm so sorry," I mumbled to the cashier, feeling the heat of shame crawl up my neck. "I think I need to put some things back." The cashier sighed softly, nodding. "No problem, ma'am. Happens all the time." But before I could decide which items to give up, a quiet voice behind me said, "Don't worry about it. I've got this." I turned around. A man stood there, mid-30s maybe, simple jeans, a dark coat, a kind but tired face. He wasn't smiling exactly, but his eyes carried something I hadn't seen in a long time, genuine warmth. I can't let you do that," I stammered, embarrassed. He shook his head lightly. "Please, I insist." Before I could argue, he had already handed his card to the cashier. The machine beeped, the receipt printed, and just like that, the groceries were mine. I tried to thank him, to ask for his name, but he simply smiled and said, "Take care of your little girl." Then he walked out, no hesitation, no explanation. By the time I followed him outside, he was gone, vanished into the grey morning as if he'd never existed. For days, I couldn't stop thinking about that stranger. Who was he? Why did he help me? People don't just pay for $80 worth of groceries for a complete stranger and disappear. It felt like some invisible hand had reached out from the universe at the exact moment I was about to fall apart. That moment, simple as it was, sparked something in me. It didn't erase my problems. The rent was still late. My job still felt like a dead end, and life didn't suddenly become easier. But it planted a seed, a small, glowing sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. That night, after Lily went to sleep, I sat by her bedside watching her breathe, thinking about how someone else's kindness had kept us going one more day. I promised myself I'd find a way to be that person for someone else someday. Months passed. I started taking night classes in medical billing, squeezing them in between shifts at the diner. It wasn't easy. I'd come home at midnight, exhausted, feet aching, but I kept going. Every time I felt like giving up, I remembered that stranger and his quiet words. Then came the day I got a new job, 80 hours, better pay, health insurance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stability. For the first time in years, I could breathe without that constant weight pressing down on my chest. One evening, after picking Lily up from school, I stopped at a café for a small treat. The woman ahead of me looked flustered, digging through her purse, apologizing to the cashier. "I'm sorry," she said. "I must have left my wallet in the car. I didn't even think about it. I just stepped forward and said, 'Don't worry about it. I've got this.'" The cashier looked surprised. The woman turned, eyes wide, and for a split second I saw myself, tired, anxious, trying to hold it together. She whispered, "You don't have to. I know." I said, "But I want to." As the receipt printed, I felt something warm bloom in my chest. The same feeling that stranger must have felt that day at the grocery store. That night, I tucked Lily into bed, and she asked, "Mom, why did you buy that lady's coffee?" I smiled. Because once someone did something kind for me, and I wanted to pass it on. She nodded thoughtfully, as if filing the lesson away for later. Then she said, "Maybe when I'm big, I'll help someone too." I kissed her forehead, whispering, "That's how the world gets better, baby. One person at a time." Years later, when I finally had enough saved up to move into a small but cozy apartment, I often thought back to that stranger. I never saw him again. I didn't even know his name, but his act of kindness had started a ripple that reached further than he could ever imagine. Because kindness doesn't just end with one gesture, it multiplies, weaving invisible threads between strangers, turning small mercies into something much larger than any of us. Maybe he was just a man doing a good deed. Or maybe, in that moment, he was something more. A reminder that even when life feels unbearable, there are still good people out there, quiet heroes who show up when we least expect it. And though he disappeared that day, his kindness never did. It lives on, in the choices I make, in the way I raise my daughter, and in every small act of compassion that follows.